Stay on.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. I'm your host, Christian Williams, and I am here with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you tonight, sir?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah.
A lot of things happening here late to kind of put a
lot of
damper
things
on some
happen.
things.
Yeah. So normally we, have some weird intro, but I think instead of talking about this later in the show, obviously, the news came through. John Gruden resigned as head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. This comes after a lot of leaked emails with a lot of homophobic and racial slurs, a lot of bad things. We're not going to get into it. What we're going to get into, what does this mean for Derek Carr moving forward? What does this mean for the Raiders in 2021? Do you think this is actually good for them, or is it going to be really bad?
I don't know if you can spin it as it's going to be good for them. I don't know if it'll be a detriment to them necessarily. Gruden is a definite leader of a team, but I do believe in the coaching staff that has a lot of coaching experience, as well as I would say the leadership of the team this year more than a lot of years, especially. Everyone knows Carr is a great leader. Jacobs, Waller, Ngakoue, Crosby, and you have a lot of veterans throughout the team. I think they'll be able to get through this. I think the top end stuff for them may be slightly out of reach, but it's kind of what it was. I think we're back to reality, like with the Raiders. I understand 3-0. But their offense has played very poorly the last 2 weeks. So I don't think this has anything to do with that. I think they need to get a refresh. And for the Raiders long term, I have faith in them finding a good coach for cheaper. If we're going to be fair and real about this, much cheaper than Gruden was. So that's a plus.
Yeah. So what I'll say, I think that a lot of people, whatever your opinion is on cancel culture versus consequences, whatever. However, he lost that locker room as soon as those things leaked, especially a locker room with Carl Nassib in there. And so I don't think the Raiders would have fired him, if I'm being completely honest. I think him resigning was him understanding that there was no way he could step foot in that locker room this weekend and coach that team. So where I think it'll be good is at least he didn't hang around and cause a distraction, because I think that if he would have stayed, it would have been just an atrocity and it would have been very, very bad. So
yeah, which was the second thing he said in his brief statement tonight.
Yeah.
First apology, then I don't want to be a distraction, I'm leaving, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
and that it's not something that we really feel like talking about. It's all still very new. Obviously, they've been breaking it on the Monday Night Football broadcast and all over Twitter and whatnot. But Raiders season looking a little more bleak, although I think it was starting to look kind of bleak anyway. I'm sorry, Randy. All right. We are here to talk through the Week 5 fallout, go through some highlights and some lowlights, also give you guys some waiver wire guys to keep an eye on. And then that's it. That's it for this show. But we have a lot to talk about. And so we're going to start with the injuries from Week 5. And the main one is Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is out 6 to 8 weeks. He posted a picture high as a kite immediately following his surgery. I assume Sierra posted that. But it's looking like It's looking closer to 8 weeks from what I've seen. That means Seahawks season done, Randy?
Probably. It's hard to tell because the NFC in general hasn't been like this astounding juggernaut of teams that I do think the AFC has kind of shown to be so far. But that division is tough. So I think their outer division race, which is a huge part of this, and they could be an above 500 team to make the playoffs, but it's going to have to be the shorter end of the spectrum for Wilson, and that will also mean that Gino Smith's going to have to win at least a game. Like there's a lot that has to go right. I put on here it's at least a month, if not 2, because there is some early speculation that if all goes perfectly, it could be a month. So he's out for sure a month. Most likely he's out 2 months though. So if it's the full 2 months, I'd say they're done for the year. They're going to probably have at least 6 losses in there, and they're not a great record team right now. So
right, yeah, that's the thing to consider here. I mean, the Seahawks are now, I believe, 2-3, which puts them at a big disadvantage moving forward. Geno Smith, I will say, did look really, really good, and a lot of people take it as like a victory lap, but when I was watching the preseason game of the Seahawks this year, I think it was preseason, I said, this is the best version of Geno Smith I think I've ever seen. He's a really, really good fit within that offense. And what it shows is that teams really, really need a backup quarterback along the same mold as their starting quarterback. And Geno Smith is that. And I think that while I would love to say, yeah, that makes the NFC West easier to predict, I think Geno can keep them afloat. I think they have some winnable games. And so I don't think their season's done per se, but it's definitely an uphill battle from here on out.
Yeah. I think it's probably the right time to say it now before everyone else gets talking to it. Cam. Just bring it up quick. I don't think it's the best fit because this offense is predicated on vertical threats, and hasn't been Cam's strong suit the last 2 years. But he is the big name free agent quarterback, so I am sure if they get the word that's probably going to be 8 weeks, it's going to be tossed around.
What about Foles?
I don't think he fits, really. I think they want some mobility. Like because of the offensive line, they want mobility, but you have to be able to launch it. So Foles fits that, but he doesn't fit the mobility.
That's fair. Yeah. It's going to be something to keep an eye on. I think Geno gets a week here because I think he did enough. Even that interception he threw, it wasn't his fault. I mean, his receiver Lockett fell down, so
tripped up.
I wouldn't call it like DPI, but maybe I would based on the Browns game.
It's not. Yeah, I was like, it's not Njoku in the end zone, but it's something. It's just if their doctors are telling them it's going to be 2 months, are they comfortable with Geno Smith and Jake Luton? That's my point. Is they're probably looking to bring in someone else. Yeah. In case.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, next guy, Daniel Jones. Wobble baby wobble. Guy got up and he did not look good when he stood up, and so I don't know the severity. I believe he's in the protocol, right?
He is in the protocol with no progress report so far of it.
Yeah.
The only thing is, literally, Joe Judge said he's in the protocol and he has to go through steps. That's literally all.
Yeah, Joe Judge is he's the worst. He's the worst on a lot of different levels, but the Saquon report that he gave today was just the x-rays didn't come back that bad. He didn't say they were negative though. So I mean, like, Saquon might have a broken foot, guys. I don't know what Joe Judge is telling us, but
yeah, he's an idiot.
Yeah, there's no intrigue with the backup quarterback there.
Glennon?
Glennon? Yeah, I'm good on Mike Glennon.
He's one of those you just avoid. I think Geno, from what we saw in like a deep like I know in our if a
32
couple
teamer.
of our 32 team, he's going to be bid like $150 for. But for other leagues, I think in very deep superflex leagues, he's worth a pickup because if he plays like he did last week, stepping in late, he'll be a quarterback 2, like at worst. I mean, in a superflex, that's good.
He'll be startable. It's tough not to be startable with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So
and I also am of the thought process that Carson isn't. He's week to week. He's not out for multiple weeks, kind of thing. So
yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah. So all right. Yeah. Sorry, Daniel Jones. We turned back to the Seahawks because we don't want to talk about you. Saquon Barclay though, looks like a low ankle sprain, but like I said, Joe Judge is being kind of ambiguous. He's not really giving up a lot of information. Sounds like week to week, very much so believe that he will be out this week. From what I've been reading, it sounds like 2 weeks might be the case. A lot of people posted a screenshot of his ankle and said, this looks awful. Have you seen a sprained ankle? Have you sprained your ankle? It just kind of looks like that, guys. I mean, it's just a bad sprain. He just has bigger ankles.
I was going to say, it's just bad because he's fucking yoked everywhere.
Yeah. So. Yeah, so Saquon, it's tough. It's been a tough season for Saquon thus far. He finally got up to speed, and then that happens, and it was a freak injury too. No luck there. So
yeah, and I know they're in a kind of trash division, but I don't like. For him, for Golladay, for what they've done with the receiving corps so far with injuries, like why rush back? Get him full health before he's on the field.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of, Kenny Golladay hyperextended his knee, I believe, in the first quarter.
Yes.
It sounds as though it's not that bad. It sounded like a 1 to 2 week thing for him from what I read, I believe, today from Ian Rappaport, which was good news. They were a little afraid that it was going to be a worse injury, but I don't know how much it matters, to be completely honest. Kenny Golladay in redraft leagues, I need to stop telling people to drop people. I think you can drop Kenny Golladay if you don't have an IR spot. It's just he wasn't really all that great for your fantasy teams anyway. And with Kadarius Toney stepping up, I don't know how viable Kenny Golladay will be moving forward past this injury. Are you along the same mindset? Am I crazy for wanting to drop all these people? The answer is yes, but
yes, you're definitely crazy. There's nowhere around that part. It's close because he's been very, very disappointing, but that's for the people that drafted him highly. Like, we weren't drafting Golladay. We weren't telling you guys to draft Golladay. Like, there was an upside here because it's not a high-powered offense as is. He needs touchdown equity, and a guy that's going to throw it up to him, he doesn't have that. So,
yeah, it's a tough scene for the whole Giants squad. Kadarius Toney is going to avoid a suspension, though, from throwing a punch. He will be fined, however.
Rightfully.
So, yeah. All right, next. Judy Smith-Schuster, unfortunately, out for the year. I boneheadedly said that looked like the same injury as Baker Mayfield. Turns out it wasn't. It was much worse. Juju had successful surgery. He is out for the season, as I said. I tweeted out, I feel for the kid. He took a chance on himself. I wanted to go back to Pittsburgh to make it work because they were pretty close last year, although I think you could see the writing on the wall that they weren't actually close. He decided to go back. He bet on himself, and it turned out to be a bad bet because now, past this year, I don't know what his outlook is. I don't know if the Steelers will even want him back. I think this is tough.
I don't think he should be a Steeler, in my opinion. No. I think he's better fitted to go to a wide receiver needy team.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's very true. Next, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, MCL sprain. Looks like 3 to 4 weeks. What's up?
Quickly with Juju, any interest in James Washington?
Feel it out. I wouldn't.
I figure it's probably the only thing that's really value there because obviously Deontay was already the one. This only just increases touches for him and Najee.
Yeah.
Chase is his own thing. Well, he's his own thing. Like,
he is. I will say I do have interest in James Washington, but it's only because I think Claypool and Deontay are injury prone themselves. For
Yeah.
as injury prone as can be, I know that's kind of a fake thing, but I think that with the chance that James Washington becomes the second target in this offense, now I don't think that Big Ben can sustain how he played against the Broncos this last week.
No.
He was still pretty bad. He had over 7% of his throws were turnover worthy, which is not good. It was second worst in the league, I believe. So, yeah, I mean, deep leagues, yes, I'm adding him. But outside of that, I mean, I wouldn't spend a high priority on him, but we'll get to waivers in a second. So, good question though. Like I said, Clyde Edwards-Helaire out about 3 to 4 weeks with an MCL sprain. Seems like best case scenario with how it looked. We'll talk through what this means for the Chiefs backfield, but kind of how impactful is this to the Chiefs' actual season, like their win-loss record?
Win-loss wise, I don't know if it's like this detrimental thing. He was getting increased usage. It was good for them, but their offense has been stagnant. Hills had 2 games where he's been allowed to kind of thrive. The Chiefs did well in both of those games. Teams are taking away the top end of Hill, bracketed him completely away, and it's tore apart this offense.
Yeah.
So they're a drawing board candidate for this offense because you can't just win with Mahomes.
No.
It just isn't going to work. People are adapting to him. You can't just be gunslinging, running out, throwing it,
Yeah.
just won't work all the time.
The way to beat the Chiefs, I think we know the formula now, and it's you send 4 and you drop 7, and then you kind of sit him in his. Sometimes you sit him in his zone. I did notice last night the Bills just kind of played cover 1 a lot, but then brought a robber into the middle of the field, and he just kind of tore. Even when Tyreek got the ball in the middle of the field, Micah was there. Micah Hyde was there to clean it up. Like that pick 6. Even if Tyreek drops that football, or if he catches that football, he's stopped before the line to gain. So,
yeah,
I think that's if you can generate pressure with 4 guys, you should be able to win against the Chiefs. Now,
and kind of a layered pressure too. So
yeah.
But Edwards-Helaire is a better pass catching back than Daryl Williams. He's a better burst back, probably slightly worse goal line, but he's still good at goal line. So it's definitely a lesser version of running back now. Probably a good amount of touches, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk through that. Joe Burrow, throat contusion, went to the hospital. He's out, should be good this weekend. Quintesses, I should say Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I know this is mostly fantasy guys, but also a throat contusion. Very odd that we had 2 throat contusions in 1 week. Don't think
I saw that late. That's why it's not in here.
Yeah, that's okay. He seems to be okay too, though. It sounds like they were doing an MRI on his though, so a little nervous as a Browns fan for that. Need him against Kyler this weekend, so that would suck. Quintesses, broken collarbone, doesn't sound like it's completely season ending, though most of the time broken collarbones are. So I don't know if maybe they're just kind of keeping that info for now.
They haven't said what it is yet. There's no chance it's not on the IR though. There's some opportunity there with a couple of the top receivers going down. And the other thing with this, even if he's ready to come back in say 9-10 weeks, do they bring him back?
Yeah, I mean, there's really no point.
There's no playoff hope there. So
yeah. Man, I feel for Lions fans and that Lions team. Shout out Dan Campbell for that presser after the game. Just very good leader. I'm still not 100% sold that he's a good football coach, just based on the mistakes that have happened that have cost the Lions multiple games. But that might be more related to talent.
Yeah, we're not sure he's a good NFL head coach.
Yeah, that's
clarification
true.
there. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Levante David, low ankle sprain, most likely out this Thursday. He is week to week. I'm sure he'll fight through it because he's one of the better linebackers in the NFL, and that's what he has always done. But probably going to sit him out against the Eagles this week. I mean, why
but
not?
and it's big because he I would say more. I don't know about more, but him and Devin White are huge aspects of that run defense and pass covering tight ends. So it is something to note for Thursday.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of tight ends, Max Williams, knee injury, done for the year, which is really unfortunate because he had kind of emerged as one of Kyler's safer options. Kyler has every weapon possible in that offense right now, but Max Williams was surprisingly productive for them. So it sucks.
All props to him because he has to be a hell of a human because there was 100+ people that came to wish him well on that cart.
Yeah,
and that says something. That's usually like Dak,
superstars.
Like that's
yeah. So Max Williams out for the year. Tom Brady thumb injury. He'll play Thursday. He's a god. He doesn't even make sense. He's
going to eat broccoli and has grown a new thumb. So it's okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Joe Tooney, fractured hand. He's fine.
Bro, he did this the first drive.
I know.
He went into the locker room. They gave him a cast, and he played the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's absurd.
I love linemen.
Linemen are fun. Shout out Joe Thomas. Just shout out him for playing all those games in a row and snaps. Yeah. All right, that's enough for the injuries. That's all the sad stuff. Let's get into the highlights
this week.
I know it's just too many. I'm tired of injuries. Turn the injuries off. NFL, grow up.
Just lower the sliders, bro. God.
Yeah, right. Highlights and lowlights. We're gonna start with the highlights. Los Angeles Chargers, and I think we can couple this in. I think we should talk about the Browns here as well. So, the first thing on the docket, though, Los Angeles Chargers, they're legit.
Yes.
If we were playing contender versus pretender, which I think we probably will next week, I would call the Chargers a contender right now. I think that offense is virtually impossible to stop. As we saw this weekend, they laid 47 points on a defense that just held the Minnesota Vikings to 7 points the week before. What were your thoughts on the Chargers this week?
Very, very good. For them, there was a lot of question marks coming into the season. They're a young team. A lot of injuries the last couple of years. We don't really know what they are. I think almost everything's been answered. Arguably, the cornerback play is probably the most questionable. Safety play, definitely not. Linebacker play, even with a major injury to Murray, been pretty good. Line's been great. Offensive line, all the questions have been answered. They've looked solid together as a group. Obviously, running back's good. Mike Williams stepping up like we thought would happen. Dual tight end working well. Herbert not coming out slumped. Everything's going great. Now, as of right now, legit playoff contending team. With the Chargers, we don't know how long that lasts. Hopefully it lasts because they're a very fun team to watch. I believe should have lost, but does not matter. Because both teams have chances to do everything at all times. They could have won either way. So very good game. Definitely contender. All questions answered.
Is Justin Herbert elite?
He is a QB1 in fantasy.
Yeah. I would argue that we need to see it for the back half. Like if he continues this pace, which by the way, MVP pace right now, granted hyped up by this game where they laid 47 points. Justin Herbert was 26 of 43 for 398 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also added 4 carries, 29 yards and a touchdown in this game. I will say though, and I kind of noted, the Browns' blown coverages made him look a lot more elite in this game. He was awesome throwing outside the numbers, and he was able to distribute the football very, very well. However, if the Browns don't blow 2 coverages for Mike Williams running freaking posts, like pretty simple thing to do is to pay attention to the guy that gets 16 targets, then I don't think his numbers look quite as elite. And so I think everyone's going to start saying, oh, he's better than Mahomes. I saw it today. No, he's not. No, he's not. He's not better than Mahomes yet. He could be eventually, but he is not yet. Shout out that train. It's a weekly occurrence. I love it.
I know, but like Is there people on the track? Like, why is the horn going off so often?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely on person on tracks watch right now. But all right. I did want to note too, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen virtually have the exact same amount of targets this year. They are very, very much a 1A and 1B, and you should start both of them in fantasy every single week. I
Yes.
have both of them on one team. Unknowingly, going into the year, forgot that I had Keenan Allen. I traded for Mike Williams in the offseason, and now I just start 2 Chargers wide receivers every week, and I'm cool with it. Like, it works out for me.
It
I'm cool
does.
with that. Yeah. All right. Quickly on the Browns. Browns rushing attack, lethal. I'm going to highlight reasons why I'm a little concerned about Baker in an article this week. Baker played really well. He did play quite well. He was efficient. The thing that everyone notes when it's third down and it's an obvious passing down, Baker kind of shrinks, which has not been his moxie his entire time in the NFL. I don't know if maybe it's that shoulder injury that's lingering in his mind and he doesn't know if he can make the throw, but he was pretty bad throwing downfield as well. So it's you're not really going to start Baker Mayfield for fantasy right now. I will say that.
Hit the yards.
He did.
Had a couple
But
touchdowns. I mean,
a lot of yak.
but that's what the offense is predicated on. I mean,
it is. And more of this is just real football. Is Baker Mayfield a top 12 quarterback right now? He's not playing like it. We wanted that to be the case, and I'm gonna dive into it. Like I said, I'm not super concerned. We know what happens when one of his safety nets is kind of gone, and Jarvis Landry may come back this week, so we might see a whole different version of Baker. So maybe I'll wait a week, but we'll see. Any other thoughts on the Browns before we move on?
no.
Cool.
So
Better than the Chargers, definite contender, probably the best team in the NFL right now, I would say, although that might be a hot take with the Bucs still existing and being alive. Buffalo Bills, dominant win against the Chiefs. We talked about Mahomes' struggles and not Chiefs' offense's struggles. The Bills have kind of they drafted a bunch of linemen, and they went out and they built a defense that was essentially constructed strictly to beat Patrick Mahomes, and they went out and they showed that after a really long lightning delay, which was garbage, and I'm sleepy today because of it. But thoughts on the Bills? Is this the most well-rounded team, maybe outside of the Bucs in the NFL right now?
yeah, probably. Especially when you think that they didn't have Matt Milano at linebacker yesterday, which would have made that even better, especially covering Kelsey. They're very good. I had some reservations going to this game about consistency with that defense, especially up against a top level threat. But 4 turnovers don't lie. They made the Chiefs look inept a lot of the game. I think the weather also played a factor in that, but that hey, if they get a home game, they're probably not having 60-degree weather in the playoffs. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So it's good. They're very good. Josh Allen's looking really good. His combination of running and passing is very, very efficient because he's been ultra accurate with the ball and has the deep ball and then runs people over. When you have that mix, it's very hard to stop. And then you put in that I would say you have like 3 or 4 receivers that are outstanding, a tight end that's killing it. Line looks good. Both running backs seem to be doing their roles. I won't say anyone's exceptional by any means, but they're doing well. So
Yeah. With Allen, I was shocked to see them just roll out there and go QB counter and have him on designed runs, because that's really never been the case with Josh Allen. Sometimes they would mix in some RPOs and he would pull it, but they just went straight QB counter, QB power a couple snaps in the red zone because they trust him more than they trust their backs, which
yeah,
we've always known that. And it worked. The Chiefs were caught off guard. Josh Allen outrunning that lineman. I don't know. I think it got called back due to holding, but he started off kind of running slow, and then he just hit the freaking gas, man. And then he got, I think, 8 or 9 yards. It was impressive. That's the other MVP candidate, probably, even after a slow start. He's ridiculous. Another high, Robert Woods, squeaky wheel situation here. 8 million targets, 8 million catches, and 9 million yards in their game against
12 catches for like 150 yards, I believe, something like that.
It was 12 catches for, I have it right here. Hang on.
Apparently not right here.
Yeah, 12 catches on 14 targets, 150 yards. You are correct. So 27-ish, 27 fantasy points, depending on your scoring. That's without a touchdown. So that's just an outstanding performance. This is exactly how they should have been using Robert Woods. And it didn't come at the expense of Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp was still startable and a top 24 receiver this week. So,
yeah, but there was more attention paid to him, which is what should happen. And I think that's what's going to continue to happen. And anytime they're trying to take away Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods should have a good game. So,
for sure. And then lastly, a guy that we'll probably talk about here in a little bit. We're definitely going to talk about him, but Kadarius Toney. We've already talked about him a touch on here, but dude went just berserk in this game. Of course, they were missing some of their wideouts, and Sterling Shepard and Kenny Golladay left the game, but Kadarius Toney had 13 targets, 10 receptions, and 189 yards. He also added a carry for 7 yards. Just an incredible performance for a rookie. He actually just broke, I believe, the Odell record for Giants rookie receiving yards in a game. We're going to talk about Kadarius Toney, so I don't want to get too far into this, but I assume you were impressed by this. You can't not be.
Somewhat impressed.
Okay.
Victory lapping I saw was incredibly ridiculous. He's the pretty much only option there for a backup quarterback. That part's not impressive. Him getting 13 targets and 10 catches, in my opinion, is not that impressive, but the yardage is impressive. Maturing, definitely not impressive. Seems how he did get tossed from this game and fined eventually for punching a DP, but he's one of those, like, he should be good. However, we now know Galladay's probably out 1 to 2 weeks. Doesn't really affect him that much. We have to hear about Slayton. We have to hear about Shepard. We have to get a full report on Saquon. Get a full report on Daniel Jones. And there's a lot of injuries here, which is why he was able to succeed this early. But he did well with his opportunity.
Yeah, he definitely did. So obviously he averaged 18.9 yards per reception, but the key stat that I found today, despite having a fairly low ADOT of 10, he runs shallow routes. That's the type of receiver he is. He averaged 8.9 yards after the catch per reception, which is just a very, very good number with that high volume. So he is a slippery dude. People joke that he was the human joystick at his last year at Florida. He looks good running routes. I don't think it's sticky, though, guys. I think we need to temper that, like Randy's saying. It's just he works the same areas of the field as Shepard. Now, if he continues to earn these targets while Saquon's out, for example, and while Evan Engram still sucks, Evan Engram's actually been decent, but then maybe he's a thing, and maybe he's a god tier receiver, but I'm just not buying it just yet. All right, lowlights. That's enough of the happy shit. Down to the sad
now
shit.
Back down to the depressing stuff.
So the refs this weekend, just an all around bad performance in a lot of big games. I think the main ones, you guys probably will call us homers, but the Browns-Chargers game was not officiated very well. The Bills-Chiefs game was not officiated very well, and it's a good thing that was a blowout. The reason that Browns and Chargers has been highlighted so much today is because that was a close game that may have been determined by some terrible calls, just specifically the defensive pass interference on AJ Green while covering Mike Williams, who was just yanking him. That it was just bad. And then also the Raiders Bears game. I watched that game after the fact, and I texted you, Randy, and I said, "Yeah, this is pretty bad. It's just not good at all." So officiating down week, Randy. Any thoughts on that?
Depressing.
Yeah.
It's a very bad week. It's just there was a lot of heavily affecting outcome situations. That's where I get annoyed with bad officiating. Having officiated a lot, both of us. Definitely not this level or anything like that. It's definitely not a perfect scenario. You're not going to get every call right. I completely understand that. But the point is to basically not be a part of the game. You want to call egregious stuff. You don't want to be a ticky-tack hardo. It was bad this week.
It was not good. But I don't feel like talking about refs. I also had an umpire situation in my softball games while all this was happening. And so referees and umpires gone for the week. I'm not talking about you anymore.
I feel like I'm not allowed to talk about that part of the second part of
that. This is fair. All right. Raiders offense you have listed here. This is, we added all these things, obviously, before the John Gruden news. And so the Raiders offense didn't look good this week. It
hasn't looked good the last 2 weeks.
Right.
Arguably 2.5 weeks with the first quarter against the Dolphins, first half. When you look at the stats, they're getting enough running the ball. They are when you end game it. But for their offense, especially early on, the running game hasn't been great. There's been a lot of big drops. Certain games, Carr's been off the target. The line has been a revolving door with injuries. It's hard to trust anyone. And I mean, even like Waller's taking the hit because of it the last 2 weeks. Renfro has been consistent because that's all I can do. But Ruggs has had a down couple weeks. Edwards has had 2 weeks of astounding drops that would have led to big games. So it's just a continual thing. They need to fix it. Now it's even more pressing because how do they fix it? How do they get focused on fixing said offense? We'll see.
The most disappointing thing to me was Bryan Edwards. He was open. Yes. So the knock on Bryan Edwards is that he wasn't getting open. Well, now he's getting open and he forgot how to catch the freaking football. Yes. Just egregiously bad drops. Hit him in both hands and you could tell he just looked upfield. He's not the caliber of player that can be doing that and continuously getting reps. And we might see some more Zay Jones here soon. I know Derek Carr likes Zay Jones quite a bit. He also liked Bryan Edwards, but I don't think he's liking him this week. So it's something to watch. I mean, I think in Dynasty, you might be selling high on Bryan Edwards right now, despite the lack of production the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and that's the other thing we didn't talk about with the Gruden firing. Yes, they will hire a new coach. Most likely that's at the end of the season.
Yeah.
However, new coaches sometimes breed new GMs, especially when the coach that was there and the GM have been in the hot seat for the season.
Yeah.
So players that are doing stuff like that, like dropping it, or a veteran leader at your quarterback position in Carr that's on last leg of his contract, that could change. You got linemen that could change. There's a lot of possible turnover here. So that's dynasty-wise. If he's making mistakes like that, you have to start weighing the other options as well.
Yeah, for sure. We also put down here, we'll move off of the Raiders offense. Kickers. Kickers had a terrible weekend in general, but specifically that Packers-Bengals game was one of the wildest things I've ever watched in my entire life. And I actually flipped off the overtime and had to go back and rewatch all the terrible kicks. Just one of the worst displays of kicking across the entire, Thursday night that we had 2 or 3 kicks out of bounds. And so maybe we should have known that this was going to be the case, but
I would say there was probably another 5 or 6 kicked out of bounds on Sunday too, at least. Sunday.
Yeah, it was just a wild day, and now in this Monday night game, freaking a punter comes in and misses a kick, gets bailed out on an offsides, and then Blankenship, who's dealing with a hip injury, comes in and knocks in a gross-looking field goal.
Yeah,
Uh,
he literally knuckleballs a field goal in, and then 2 seconds later we get an update from Sleeper. He's got hip issues going on. It's like, obviously not that bad. Jesus.
right, yeah, it was wild, but
just knuckled in a 40-yard field goal. Good God.
yeah, tough week for kickers, but also there are very few people in the fantasy industry that put out kicker rankings. Please don't berate them if they pick the wrong kicker. For example, Evan McPherson was probably high up in kicker rankings this week because that was justifiable, and then
Yes.
he just didn't. It didn't happen. But don't berate people, you weirdos.
Predicting fantasy is hard enough as it is. Predicting kicker missing field goals or extra points is impossible and not something you can accurately expect from analysts because it's like predicting an injury every week. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's wild. All right, next, Carolina Panthers. Their offense came back down to earth this week. Their defense...
Turnovers, big.
Yeah.
Same with the Chiefs. It's just turnovers was a big thing.
Yeah, we had our like second to kind of victory lap, Sam Darnold being fixed. And then the problem is that they run the same offense and the same plays every single week. And teams now have film on Sam Darnold and his tendencies. And the Eagles just sat on the route and just said, okay, throw it here. This is where you always throw it. And they picked him off, 3 times, I believe. So
yeah, I believe
just not a good game from Sam Darnold. He looked too similar to New York Jets Sam Darnold this weekend for me to feel comfortable with that offense moving forward. They were missing Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is hopeful to play this weekend, so maybe that changes when he re-enters the lineup, but I don't know how drastic that will be.
True.
Yeah.
We can only hope.
We can't hope. And then lastly, of the lowlights, the Denver Broncos, they put up a fight towards the end of the game. However, Teddy Bridgewater was all out of sorts for a lot of the game. The Broncos defense got torched by the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have no business torching anyone at this point with Big Ben at the helm. Ben had his best week of what I will assume is the entire season. I don't think he's going to repeat that performance, as I said earlier. But the Broncos kind of look like the worst team in the AFC West now, which you predict. I think their defense is still good. I think that the Steelers did a really good job of exposing their weaknesses, and I don't think every team is going to be able to do that.
It's fair.
Cool. All right. We've talked a lot, and so now we have to run through our waivers fairly quickly. So, yeah. So we are going to give some waivers. Now, remember, guys, these guys might not be available in your leagues. However, if they are, we will tell you how we'll prioritize them, etc. And the first one that we're going to talk about is Daryl Williams. Obviously, last week it was Damian Williams, who had a decent performance for fantasy football because he caught some passes. But Daryl Williams this week, 19% rostered. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is probably going to the IR. Breaking news, the kicker does have a hip injury. Damn it.
Right.
And so with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce also kind of banged up, Daryl Williams, plug and play starter, Randy, for the next few weeks?
Plug and play flex.
Okay.
Like I got into, I would expect definitely in between what CH has done this season. So the last 2 weeks, he's looked incredible, obviously up until the injury. The first 2 weeks, he did not look good. It wasn't involved. Clyde is a better pass catcher. He's a better burst back, about the same goal line back. So the only upside here is you're still getting some passing work. He got 5 targets after Clyde was hurt. And then you have Hill, who's banged up. Kelsey's got a stinger. There's opportunity for touchdowns, and he would be the lone goal line back now. So that's his biggest upside.
Yeah. I mean, either way, this is a guy that you probably are prioritizing this week, depending on what your waiver wire looks like, just simply because running backs are hard to find. Cordero Patterson is a freaking RB1, for God's sake. Like, If you can get a starting running back on your roster, I'm cool with doing that. That seems like a good strategy. So
Yeah.
Speaking of that, next up would be Devontae Booker, 11% rostered. Saquon's out at least this week. In terms of fab spending on Devontae Booker, he did get 4 targets when he came into the game. However, I don't know that I'd spend up too much on Devontae Booker simply because I think Saquon does come back in 2 weeks, maybe 3, but it's kind of the same situation as Chuba Hubbard, who was just a little rental, and now he's pretty much not rosterable, I would say, after.
Just a handcuff again.
Yeah. So, Booker, Randy, what percent of fab would you justifiably spend?
10 to 15.
Okay.
So it's a decent chunk because I don't think you're going to be able to have 5% of fab and get them. But realistically, you don't want to spend something like 30, 40, 50%. I would rather spend like 30% to 40 on Daryl Williams because that's more than likely 3 weeks, whereas Booker could be 3 weeks kind of thing.
Yeah, that's fair. The giant that I would be more interested in, even though I said I'm not 100% buying this, Kadarius Toney, 31% roster. Now, these rosterships are from Sleeper. Might be a little different on ESPN, but pretty much these are Sleeper redraft leagues. Standard is PPR. Kadarius Toney, breakout game. We talked about it earlier, over 180 yards. Randy wrote in here, huge breakout game before he decided he was a boxer. He must have watched Fury versus Wilder. I saw someone say I think it was Coach Bruce said, well, he must have watched Wilder because that was a terrible punch.
And it was a right hook, I believe, so fits.
That's true. Also, quickly, why do players punch helmets? Seems kind of dumb.
Because they're dumb.
Yeah, it seems pretty dumb.
Now, I will say, depending on where you hit, it can be effective.
Yeah.
Speaking as a lineman, I've hit a few ear holes in my day. It's very effective. However, punching the top of the helmet and or the face mask is only going to hurt you. The odds of you getting in through the face mask and hitting is very slim to none. So it's a really poor decision. That's come from someone that's been poked in the eye a few times. So
yeah. That makes me appreciate that Andre Johnson, Cortland Finnegan fight where they ripped each other's helmets off.
Both took each other's helmets.
Exactly. They were like, yeah, I'm not hurting myself. I'm hurting you.
Yeah.
I like that. But Kadarius Toney, guys. Yeah, I mean, pick him up. We don't know if Sterling Shepard will play this week. We do know that Saquon Barkley won't play, and we do know that Kenny Golladay won't play. Darius Slayton really doesn't factor into that too much for me personally, but I think Kadarius Toney has to be rostered at the very least.
I agree. Don't expect that probably ever again.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
But I mean, just be fair here. But the second Shepard's back, he is very limited, in my opinion, especially now with Ingram back, full swing, getting targets. Again, Saquon being out is going to help that, but still.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is 19% rostered. Quintesses got hurt, and Amon-Ra has 2 weeks of some pretty decent output, kind of flex-worthy stuff. He's being used as a slot guy. He may never find the end zone, but 8 targets, 7 receptions, 65 yards in this game, 13.5 PPR points, which is, I mean, that's startable as a second flex option for you. And it seems like that's going to be kind of the case moving forward. Randy, of Kadarius and Amon-Ra, with the safety that comes with St. Brown moving forward, which one would you prefer? And the fact that our evaluations would have had Amon-Ra ahead on talent. Too,
by far.
By a lot.
I would rather have St. Brown on my team because I'd feel more comfortable playing him. Now, I would rather pick up Toney this week in a redraft and then immediately sell him if at all possible, and then pick up Amon-Ra St. Brown because I mean, Cephas is most likely done, I would say, for the year, whether that's injury or them just keeping him out for safety and for the future. Daryl Williams, I believe, is done. I know he's in the IR. I believe he's done. I can't remember. Hawkinson's effectively being scripted out of games by defenses. So you have running backs and Amon Ra and Khalif Raymond? Like it.
Yeah,
That's it.
Khalif got some snaps. He got a lot of snaps, actually. He was on the field quite a bit. So, yeah.
And Amon Ra is a slot guy. He's going to get open. He is very, very good. And I think this isn't going to be stated enough. If they somehow get into the red zone, he quite possibly was the best red zone receiver of the draft class. So,
yeah,
it's upside.
yeah, for sure. I'm in on that for sure. One guy, so the next guy that we have here is Alex Collins, rostered at 50%. But that made me think of Alexander Madison, who we saw fill in for Dalvin Cook. And I just wanted to see what his rostership was. It's only 77%. So if you're in like a shallowish league and Madison's not there, Cook should be back this week, but it's worth it to toss Madison on your bench and just hold him through maybe Sunday and kind of wait and see.
Yeah,
but
and that's the same thing with Collins.
Yeah.
Played relatively well. Bad matchup. I believe they have a couple bad matchups still.
Yeah,
coming up, and then Wilson's down. That's gonna hurt. Carson's week to week. He could play this week, but I think it was pretty telling that even in passing downs, Homer didn't get a lot of work, which the week before was kind of a mixture. So that's why I was off of Collins last week, especially with Carson being up and down. And then Thursday game against a good defense, it just didn't all work out. However, I think he's worth a pickup if you have that ability just to hold on. Because Carson, with this lingering injury that's already been popped up twice this year, I think he's a good handcuff as of now.
Yeah, it's fair. He did have 15 carries, 47 yards, and caught 2 passes for 25. So there was a lot of discussion after, like on Friday morning. A lot of people victory lapping, saying that Alex Collins wasn't a good start in redraft leagues or in deep dynasty leagues, which is really like the only place I saw Alex Collins started. He was a fine play. I had Carson. I plugged in Alex Collins. I was happy with that output.
He did okay. So, and it was a tough matchup. And again, they have they don't have easy matchups coming through these next couple weeks. I know the Giants have with Devontae Barker, I'm pretty sure they have the Bucks and then someone else that's good at run defense. So Devontae Barker, that's again why he's a little bit lower. But for Collins, it's a handcuff thing for me. Spot start and a flex, nothing fantastic. If he gets a light matchup, even then I'm not full confident like Carson type numbers because of there's no Russ. Gino again looked good, but it is Gino Smith, so the odds are a team that isn't up and facing a backup quarterback in a game and isn't just going to sit back and let him throw like this week. He's probably going to get blitzed into death. So
well, so he gets Pittsburgh and then the Saints back to back. So not great, but Antonio Gibson had 20 carries against the Saints, so maybe not Pittsburgh. Maybe that's not the route you go, but following week you might be okay.
And it is the every other week thing with the Saints. So they're going to be a top 5 defense this week and then bottom of 5 next week. So that's good.
That's very true. All right, next guy.
Speaking of.
Next guy, Marquez Calloway. 8 targets, 4 receptions, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns, 24.5 fantasy points. Only rostered at 39%. I know Michael Thomas is scheduled to come back. I believe the Saints are on bye this week, actually, but I think you have to pick up Marquez Calloway, who everyone was off of, rightfully so. He was playing very poorly or just not being targeted, and now looks to be a decent play. The last 3 weeks, 14 fantasy points, 9 fantasy points, and then 24. Upward trend-ish, kind of up and down.
He's getting targets, finally. This is what we were expecting early, and then he got Jair and a bunch of other stuff. So that's fair.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think I just watched the Ravens win. So, right.
That was very unfortunate. So, yeah.
But Callaway, I think Michael Thomas coming back only helps him. So, Saquon Smith, if they both come back, that's when we're talking about getting into rough patches. But
yeah, for sure. And then lastly, last name that I just tossed on here, Gino Smith. We already talked through that. In Superflex leagues, I think he has to be rostered. I think
yes, 100%. For me, this is along the same path as Heineke.
Yes, yeah.
Where it's a must roster QB2, good upside, especially with how he performed in that game. Now, again, I don't know if I'd fully be on board playing him this week. I definitely want to see another week of this, but if he performs to that level again, I think he could win a couple games, and that means he's going to be good.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing with Gino Smith is you can drop a guy like Zach Wilson for Gino Smith, and I find that funny. And I like to have fun when I play fantasy football, but dropping a Jets flame-out quarterback that never really got another opportunity, or picking up a Jets quarterback that never got another opportunity.
Close call.
Yeah, we can't be saying that about Zach Wilson yet, which, by the way, there's some rhetoric going around that the Jets should start looking for a new quarterback. Stop being crazy and impatient. That's absurd.
At least give him 2 years, because arguably he's not. This next quarterback class is still up in arms. There's no. Yeah. We both like Carson Strong. We see good things out of Ritter. We see good things out of other people at times, especially Howell.
Yeah.
However, no one's consistent like this last group, so it's not the same thing.
Yeah, and Zach Wilson is not Josh Rosen. We're not doing that. And Saleh isn't getting fired after this year. So it's just, Zach Wilson is going to start for the next 3 to 4 years, probably all 4, and then we'll see. Hopefully he improves, I think he will. So, all right, that's enough Zach Wilson talk too. Reminder, guys, so we have a plethora of shows every week. On Wednesday nights, we have the Coach Approach at 8 p.m. On Thursday nights, we have the College Football Cut at 10 p.m. And then on Friday nights, we have DFS Deep Dive at 8 p.m. all Eastern time. Also, check out thecutffb.com. We have rankings posted every week. We've had quite a few articles. We have a Pick'em article. I don't know how we did this week, but I assume fairly okay. It wasn't a great week for picks. And then shout out to Jared at JT Spreads on Twitter. He posts a weekly Thrive article every week. So if you guys want to play Thrive Fantasy, which you should, sign up if you have not already and use promo code TheCut, then you can get some advice from him. And Thrive Fantasy is a lot of fun. So we'll talk about the Listener League on Thursday. Shout out Wayne, who wants us to talk about how good his team is, but I don't know if he won this week. So we'll see if we actually talk about him.
We did have it in tonight's show, Doc, but because it wasn't over yet, we decided to wait till Thursday.
Yeah. Randy, anything else to add before we get out of here?
No, sir.
Alrighty. Well, we will be back in podcast form only on Thursday with our starts and sits and Thursday night football preview. We might, like I said, talk about the Listener League and talk through some other things. But outside of that, we will talk to you guys then. For Randy Hall, I am Christian Williams. We will talk to you guys then. Later.